Hey, what's up, guys? Little man with a big opinion here. Today's video is going to be another news style video. I've got 3 or 4 articles up on the computer that I'll be reading off of, as well as I'll post a link to each of these articles in the description down below. I would say that I have to add a little preference or pretense of I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't give you financial advice. And that's partially because about a week ago, I made a video talking about the CDC's federal eviction moratorium ending. And in typical government fashion, they waited till the 11th hour of the last day to pass anything. And they're basically kicking, the can down the street just a little bit further. And it's pretty common for them to do that with a lot of things, but in the midst of the civil unrest, a pandemic, and some insane inflation that we're seeing this year, the eviction moratorium would have hit people, a lot harder 2021 versus 2019, 2018, and maybe even the beginning of 2020. But they extended it. They did a limited extension. Essentially, the CDC pushed it to October 3rd, and they gave pretty vague guidelines on it. They basically said if your area is being heavily affected by an increase in COVID cases, which this article says is about 80% of U.S. counties and roughly 90% of the U.S. population. Without trying to get political or anything, the last thing I saw on the vaccination rates was 50 or 60%. Let's get that out of the way. Let's look that one up real quick. I mean, this is saying 57% of the U.S. population is fully vaccinated. So, and this article came out a day ago saying U.S. hit 70% vaccination. We'll pull this one up. Goal of getting, so at least one vaccine shot to 70% of Americans. So, additional 13% between the 57 and 70. So about 2 more weeks and nearly 3/4 of the U.S. population will be vaccinated. So they're doing pretty good on that end. But for the moratorium, with their vague guidelines, it was basically extended to October 3rd. And the federal government has set aside $45 billion to assist renters. And essentially, you can get anywhere between 12 and 18 months of rent assistance. Now, I read through this article, and I can't tell you if this goes towards back rent or if it goes to your current rent, but if it goes to back rent, then essentially what will happen starting October 3rd, you should receive the money and then, get paid up and you're back to square one before pandemic started. But we have a massive job openings in the U.S. as stuff starts to slowly come back. But the unemployment, the last time I looked at it, so the information I have on the unemployment is the June report. I don't think the July report has come out because this came out on the 6th, and It was released on July 2nd. It was the first one that popped up. And we're sitting at about 5.9%, or roughly 9 million Americans who are out of work. But the alarming figure in here for me is the long-term unemployment, which is not having a job for 27 weeks or more, is still sitting at 4 million people. So roughly half of the unemployment right now is people that have not worked in 6 months. So actually it's almost 7 months. And their number is declining very, very small. It's the first decline was 200,000 and the next one was 230,000. So the long-term unemployment is the scariest statistic that I have on here for job loss, and tie that in with, essentially millions. They estimated it between 10 and 30 million people could be affected by the eviction moratorium. Some states are applying different, local assistance, but tie that in with the more alarming number. They say by the end of the fourth quarter of 2021, the inflation will be around 3.2%. U.S. government really hopes to keep that at 2%, but we're not doing too hot on that. And considering that in previous years it was floating just under 2%, they're going to have several years of having to make up for this rapid increase of higher inflation. And I didn't read through the entirety of the article, but they say the inflation is here to stay for the coming years. And says the inflation forecast is well above 2% through 2023. So I wouldn't expect to see any decline in much of anything for the next couple of years. And they really don't look much further than that, because this is a number that can rapidly change, and they have to update what they're plugging into their algorithm, on a weekly and monthly basis. And, you just can't plan too far out ahead of this one. But as a prepper, what does all this information mean? As it sits right now, the $100 you make is only worth about $97, $96.80 if we're being exact. And if you're spending more on fuel and food, then you're spending less on preps. It's probably a 3 or 4 year old video at this point. One of the first prepping videos that I watched from Canadian Prepper, he was talking about the Mountain House food that people put away. It's got a 25 to 30 year shelf life, and that's mostly due to restraints on how long the company's been around. They can extend that after they do product testing and stuff. A general consensus amongst a lot of preppers is it's got a fairly indefinite shelf life, as long as the structural integrity of the packaging isn't lost. They say some taste from the food can be lost, but essentially, if you're spending $8 on Mountain House food now, and you decide to eat it in 10 years when Mountain House food is worth $14 or $15, that's one of your ways of curbing inflation. But you can't buy your Mountain House food if you're worried about getting kicked out of your home, you don't have a job to go to, and it used to cost you $2.20 a gallon, and now it costs you $2.90 a gallon. Your eggs used to cost $1.15, and now they cost $1.40. It's getting more difficult for preppers to put away food and other supplies, because more of their income is going into the here and now and not the the when and if in the future. So my solution is pretty self-explanatory. The more that you can become self-sufficient on your own, the better outcome you'll have. I've planted a lemon and lime tree. Next spring I plan on growing said orchard and setting up a small garden and getting chickens at some point. I wouldn't say that I'm out of time for chickens this year, but with other house renovations, the funds quite aren't there for that. But if you do have the extra income as a prepper, and I would say after you've hit between the 6 month and 1 year stockpiling of food, and you've got your water treatment, your water purification, you feel secure enough with the firearms and other self-defense items that you choose to purchase, then the next step in your prepping goal should be producing your own food. And a couple of other preppers have done videos on, getting the most out of, a quarter acre, getting the most out of an acre of land. And there are diagrams upon, spreadsheets, upon information out there on how to fit the most food production, whether it's livestock or growing your own food within a very small area. So even if you only have, your 2/3 of an acre house, and your house is taking up a third, and your front yard is, half of that other third, you'd be surprised at what you can squeeze into your area. And I'll leave it at that. Inflation is going up, and they say it's here to stay. We don't know what will happen when this extension on the evictions goes away, and they set aside $45 billion, and the article says they think they'll need closer to $70 billion to protect all of the Americans. And I talked about the 3 articles. I'll add the job report employment situation from the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the description down below as well. And just leave your thoughts on this situation. What are you doing to secure your family's survival? And what advice would you give to new preppers coming to the channel on, what's the best food to put away? How are you utilizing your land if you are taking the self-sufficient route? And just general good thoughts and ideas in the comment section down below. But I'll catch you in the next one. Share the video with people that you think would benefit from the information, and subscribe to the channel. Peace.